The council chamber was in chaos. Representatives from 1,000 worlds filled the massive circular room, and every single one of them was terrified. Some were shouting. Others sat in stunned silence. A few were already making plans to flee as far as they could go. Ambassador Vrelith clicked her mandibles together nervously. The insectoid diplomat had served the Chitara hive for 300 years, and she had never seen anything like this. Her compound eyes watched the holographic display at the center of the chamber, showing the thing that was going to kill them all. They called it the Devourer. It looked like a massive wound in space itself. Dark purple and black energy swirled at its edges, and at its center was nothing. Not darkness, not empty space, nothing, complete absence. And it was growing. High Commander Tormax slammed his clawed fist on his console. The reptilian warrior's scales had turned pale with stress. We must attack it now. My fleet stands ready. We will fire every weapon we have into that thing. Your weapons will do nothing, said Oracle Synthesis. The artificial intelligence spoke through 1,000 voices at once, creating an eerie harmony. We have calculated every possible scenario. Military force cannot stop this. The anomaly consumes matter, energy, even light itself. Your ships would simply cease to exist. Then what do you suggest? Tormax roared. That we do nothing? I suggest we accept reality, Oracle Synthesis replied calmly. The Devourer has already consumed 17 star systems. At its current rate of expansion, it will reach the core worlds in 30 days. We calculate a survival probability of 0.003%. The chamber erupted again. Panic spread like wildfire. Representatives began shouting over each other, proposing evacuation plans, desperate last stands, even ritualistic sacrifices to ancient gods that nobody really believed in anymore. Ambassador Vrelith felt her legs weaken. The hive had existed for 5,000 years. They had survived wars, plagues, and cosmic disasters. But this was different. This was the end of everything. Calm down, a voice said. It was not loud, but something about it cut through the chaos. We've got this. The chamber fell silent. Every eye, sensor, and optical device turned toward the source of the voice. Tai-Yang Kim stood at the human delegation's platform. She was small compared to most species in the chamber. Humans usually were. She wore a simple black suit and had her dark hair pulled back in a practical style. Her expression was completely calm. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then several representatives started laughing. Not happy laughter. The desperate, slightly hysterical kind. The human thinks she can solve it, someone muttered. They've been on the council for 20 years, another voice added. 20 years. My species has been here for millennia. Tai-Yang waited for the noise to die down. She did not look embarrassed or angry. She just stood there with that same calm expression. I understand your skepticism, she said.
Humanity is young.
We've barely started exploring our own region of space. Compared to most of you, our technology is simple. Our civilization is new. Then why waste our final hours listening to impossible promises? Vrelith asked. She tried to keep her voice respectful, but fear made it sharp. Because impossible is kind of our specialty, Tai-Yang replied. She tapped her console and images appeared on the main display. This is Earth, our home world. Do you know what makes it special? It is unremarkable, Oracle Synthesis stated. Standard class and planet. No unique properties. Exactly, Tai-Yang said. It's unremarkable. But it tried to kill us anyway. Diseases, natural disasters, ice ages, volcanic eruptions, predators that could eat us before we invented tools. And we survived all of it. She changed the image. Then we started creating our own problems. Wars, pollution, nuclear weapons. We nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times. And yet here we are. Tormax narrowed his eyes. You celebrate your species' violence and stupidity? No, Tai-Yang said. I'm pointing out that humans are very, very good at surviving things that should kill us. We've spent our entire existence facing impossible situations and finding ways through them, not around them, not by running away, through them. The Devourer is not a war or a disease, Vrelith said. It is a fundamental breakdown of reality itself. Every problem is impossible until someone solves it, Tai-Yang replied. Here's what I know. You've all been approaching this crisis the same way you approach everything. With logic, with established procedures, with methods that have worked before. Because those methods are proven, Oracle Synthesis said. For normal problems, yes, Tai-Yang agreed. But this isn't a normal problem. It's something none of you have ever seen before. So maybe you need an approach you've never used before. She looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as she could. Humans are good at creative thinking. We're good at improvising. We're good at looking at a problem from angles that don't make sense at first. And most importantly, we're really good at not giving up when everyone else says something is impossible. Bold words, Tormak said. But words are not solutions. You're right, Taeyang said. So here's what I'm asking. Give us 72 hours. Give us access to your research data on the Devourer. Give us a team of volunteers from any species willing to work with us. And give us a chance. And if you fail, Vrelith asked quietly. Taeyang met her eyes. Then we fail trying something instead of sitting here watching death approach. But we won't fail. Because when a human says we've got this, it means we've already decided that failure isn't an option. The chamber was silent again. But this time it was a different kind of silence. Not panic, not despair. Something else. Something that might have been hope or at least curiosity. Oracle Synthesis spoke first. The probability of success is still extremely low. Probably, Taeyang admitted. But it's better than 0.003%. I want to understand something, Vrelith said. Why would your species volunteer for this? If you fail, you die with the rest of us. Why not use those 72 hours to flee? Taeyang smiled. It was a small, sad smile, because that's not what humans do. When something threatens people we care about, we don't run. We fight, even when the fight seems hopeless. She paused, then added, and besides, we've gotten pretty attached to you all, even if you do think we're primitive and reckless. Despite everything, Vrelith felt her mandibles twitch in what might have been amusement. High Commander Tormak stood. I do not believe you can succeed, but I also know my own methods have already failed. He looked at the other council members. The human asks for 72 hours. We have 30 days before the Devourer reaches inhabited worlds. What harm can it do to give them this chance? The vote was quick. Not everyone agreed. Some species voted no, convinced this was a waste of precious time, but enough voted yes. Taeyang bowed slightly. Thank you. We won't let you down. As the council chamber emptied, Vrelith approached the human diplomat. Taeyang Kim, I have one question. Yes? Do you truly believe you can stop the Devourer? Or was that performance meant to prevent panic? Taeyang looked at her directly. I believe we have a chance. Maybe not a big one, but humans learned a long time ago that a small chance is still a chance. And we've built our entire civilization on taking those chances and making them work. She smiled again. So yes, Ambassador, I truly believe we've got this. Vrelith watched her walk away, and despite everything, despite the fear and the approaching doom, she felt something she had not expected to feel. She believed the human too. Research Station Prometheus looked like organized chaos. Hana Park stood in the center of the main laboratory, watching screens, holograms, and data streams flow around her. Aliens from a dozen species worked at different stations, and most of them looked completely confused. Hana did not blame them. The way humans worked must seem very strange to species that valued order and procedure. Okay, everyone, she called out. Let's start with what we know. The Devourer is expanding. It consumes everything it touches. It doesn't follow normal physics. What else? Dongwu Li leaned against a console, scrolling through data on his tablet. The physicist looked like he had not slept in days, which was probably true. His hair stuck up in odd directions, and he was drinking his fourth cup of coffee. It's moving in a pattern, he said, not random. There's a rhythm to it. Like breathing, almost. A Chitara scientist named Valkyra clicked her mandibles in confusion. Breathing? It is a spatial anomaly, not a life form. Maybe, Dongwu said, or maybe we've been looking at it wrong this whole time. You cannot simply decide it is alive because you wish it to be, Valkyra said. Her voice was polite but firm. 300 years of scientific training told her this was nonsense. I'm not deciding anything, Dongwu replied. I'm just not deciding it's definitely not alive yet. There's a difference. Yunahan looked up from her own station. The xenobiologist had been studying the Devourer's energy patterns for hours. He has a point. We've been treating this like a physics problem. What if it's a biology problem? That is impossible, Valkyra said. Nothing alive can exist in the conditions we are observing. Nothing alive that we know of, Yuna corrected gently. Jiwon Choi walked over to join the conversation. The former Special Forces soldier had been assigned to the project as their strategic coordinator. She had the kind of calm confidence that came from years of handling impossible situations. "Let me ask a different question," G1 said. "What does it want?" "Want?" A reptilian engineer named Krax growled. "It is a natural disaster. It does not want anything." "Natural disasters don't have patterns," G1 said. "They don't move with rhythm. They don't choose their paths. But the Devourer does. Or at least it seems to. So if it's making choices, it must want something." Valkyra was about to argue, but she stopped. The human was right. There was a pattern, a purpose to the movement. Hana watched this exchange with satisfaction. This was exactly what she had hoped would happen. Humans asked questions that others considered stupid or impossible. And sometimes those stupid questions led somewhere useful. "All right," Hana said. "Let's assume for a moment that the Devourer is alive. Or at least acts like something alive. What does any living thing want?" "To survive," Yuna said immediately. "To consume resources. To grow. To reproduce," added Dongwu. "To avoid threats." Jiwan finished. Valkyra's mandibles twitched. She was starting to see where this was going. If it consumes to survive, then it is eating. It is eating space itself. And if it's eating, Hana said slowly, then maybe we can give it something else to eat. Something that isn't inhabited star systems. The room went quiet. Every alien in the lab stopped what they were doing and stared at the humans. Krax spoke first. "You want to feed it?" "Why not?" Hana said. "If I'm hungry and someone gives me food, I stop eating whatever else was in front of me. Maybe the Devourer works the same way." "This is insane," Valkyra said, but her voice was not as certain as before. "Welcome to human problem solving," Dongwu said cheerfully. "We're just getting started." Over the next 20 hours, the team worked in a way that made the alien scientists deeply uncomfortable. There was no careful procedure, no step-by-step method. The humans just tried things. Dongwu suggested using exotic matter as food. When that did not calculate properly, he suggested dark energy. When that failed, he suggested both at once. Then he suggested adding quantum foam. Then he suggested forgetting the whole thing and trying something completely different. The aliens watched in horror as the humans abandoned hours of work without hesitation. "Does failure not bother you?" Valkyra asked Hana during a break. Hana shrugged. "Of course it bothers us. But being bothered doesn't help. So we just try the next thing. But you waste time, resources. We waste time if we keep trying something that doesn't work," Hana said. "Better to fail fast and move on." Valkyra did not understand. In her hive, failure was something to be avoided at all costs. Plans were made carefully. Every step was calculated. Success came from perfect execution. But watching the humans, she started to see a different approach. They expected failure. They planned for it. They even seemed to learn more from failure than from success. On hour 36, Yuna had a breakthrough. "The energy signature changes," she said excitedly. Right before it expands, the energy signature changes. Like it's getting ready to eat. Dongwu jumped up. "Show me." They spent the next 4 hours analyzing the signature. Other team members joined in. Even the skeptical aliens found themselves caught up in the momentum. "It's like a stomach growling," Dongwu said. "It needs to feed, so it expands to reach new sources of matter. Then if we give it food before it gets hungry," Jiwan said. "It won't need to expand," Hana finished. They looked at each other. Then they started working faster. The plan took shape quickly. They would create an artificial food source using exotic matter and quantum field manipulation. They would deliver it directly into the Devourer. If it worked, the anomaly would feed on this instead of consuming star systems. If it did not work, they would die trying. "This is impossible," Valkyra said. But she was already running calculations. "The amount of energy required is beyond our capabilities. So we use more ships," G1 said. "Link their power cores together." "That has never been done," Krax protested. "So we'll be the first," Dongwu said. "Come on, help us figure out how." Valkyra realized something strange was happening. She was helping, not because she thought it would work, but because the humans' confidence was somehow contagious. They acted like success was inevitable, like the only question was how to get there. It was illogical. It was reckless. It should not work, but she found herself wanting to try anyway. "We need a delivery system," Hana said. Something that can get close to the devourer without being consumed. Impossible, Valkyra said automatically. Then she paused. Unless, no, it is too dangerous. What? G1 asked. We could use a ship with experimental quantum shielding. It might survive long enough to deliver the payload. But the pilot would need to get very close. The chances of survival are better than zero, G1 finished. I'll do it. You do not know how to pilot the ship, Crack said. Then teach me, G1 replied. We have 20 hours left. That's plenty of time. Valkyra watched the human soldier speak with absolute certainty about learning to pilot an experimental ship in less than a day, then flying it into certain death with a smile on her face. These humans were completely insane. And somehow, that made her believe they might actually succeed. I will help, Valkyra said. We will all help. Around the lab, other aliens nodded. They had come here skeptical. But the humans' mad confidence was spreading. Their refusal to accept failure was changing how everyone thought about the problem. Hana smiled. Good, because we're going to need everyone for this. Now let's get to work. We have a galaxy to save. The lab erupted into action. Aliens and humans working together, combining their knowledge in ways that had never been tried before. It was messy. It was chaotic. It broke every rule of proper scientific method. But for the first time since the Devourer had appeared, the team did not feel hopeless. They felt like maybe, just maybe, they had a chance. 20 hours before the Devourer would reach inhabited space, everything started going wrong. The exotic matter generator overheated. Alarms blared through Research Station Prometheus as systems began shutting down. Heijin Nam, the combat engineer, did not panic. He had been in worse situations, probably. How bad? Hana Park asked, running into the generator room. Bad, Heijin admitted. He was already pulling panels off the wall, exposing the wiring beneath. The cooling system can't handle the output. We need better heat sinks, and we need them now. Where do we get them? Heijin looked at her. Then he looked at the ceiling, where the station's environmental systems hummed quietly. Well, we won't need life support if we're all erased from existence anyway. Hana blinked. You want to strip parts from our air circulation? I want to save the galaxy, Heijin said, already climbing a ladder. The air can wait 20 hours. 10 minutes later, the exotic matter generator was running again. The station's air was getting stuffier, but they would live. Probably. On the bridge, Borisong was having her own problems. The pilot sat in the experimental ship called Defiance, running simulation after simulation. Every single one ended with her death. The approach vector is wrong, she muttered. The gravitational pull is too strong. We get torn apart before we can deliver the payload. Min Seo Kwan, the communications specialist, looked over her shoulder. What if we don't fight the gravity? What if we use it? Use it how? Min Seo pulled up a star chart. There are 3 stars near the Devourer. All of them are collapsing. What if we use their gravity fields like a slingshot? Swing around them to build up speed, then use that momentum to punch through. Bora stared at the chart. She ran the numbers in her head. That's insane. The timing would have to be perfect. One mistake and we slam into a star or get pulled into the Devourer early. So don't make a mistake, Min Seo said with a smile. Bora laughed. It was not a happy laugh. The computer gives this a 12% success rate. Better than 0, not by much. Bora, Min Seo said seriously. Can you do it? Bora looked at the simulation one more time. 12%. She had flown through asteroid fields with worse odds. She had escaped enemy fire with less room for error. She had landed damaged ships on hostile planets and walked away. 12% was practically a guarantee. Yeah, she said. I can do it. Jiwan Choi coordinated everything from the command center. Screens surrounded her, showing the status of every part of the mission. Ships were gathering from across the galaxy, bringing the power cores they needed. The delivery mechanism was being assembled in orbit. The exotic matter was being generated slowly but steadily, and everything was behind schedule. Generator status, she called out. Operating at 87%, Heijin reported. That's the best we can do without better parts. 87% of the matter we need is still not enough, Valkyra said. The Chitara scientist had been working non-stop and her mandibles clicked with stress. Then we make up the difference, Jiwon said calmly. Dongwoo, can we compress the matter more? Make it denser? Dongwu looked up from his calculations. His eyes were red from exhaustion. Maybe, but the containment field won't hold. We need at least 3 times more power. How many ships do we have in orbit? Jiwan asked Minseo. 47, Minseo replied. But we're already using all their power cores. Their main cores, yes, Jiwan said. What about auxiliary power? Life support? Weapons systems? Minseo's eyes widened. You want to drain every system from every ship? Just for a few hours, Jiwan said. The crews can evacuate to the station. The ships don't need to be comfortable. They just need to give us power. Krax, the reptilian engineer, growled in what might have been approval. This is why humans are dangerous. You think like scavengers, using everything, wasting nothing. Is that an insult or a compliment? Jiwan asked. Both, Krax said. But he was already working on the power redistribution system. Taeyang Kim watched from the Galactic Council chamber. She could not help with the technical work, so she did what diplomats do best. She kept everyone else calm. They are cutting it very close. Ambassador Vrelith said quietly. They usually do, Taeyang replied. You have faith in them. I have experience with them, Taeyang corrected. I've watched humans pull off impossible things my whole life. They always look like they're about to fail right up until they succeed. And when they do fail, then they try again. With 15 hours left, the Defiance was ready. Bora ran one final check of all systems. The ship was beautiful in a brutal way. Sleek lines. Quantum shielding that glowed faintly blue. Engines powerful enough to push her through hell itself. She was going to need them. Defiance, this is Control. Minseo's voice came through her helmet. We're reading all systems green. How do you feel? Like I'm about to do something incredibly stupid, Bora replied honestly. That's the human way. Bora smiled. Yeah, I guess it is. Beginning launch sequence, the Defiance lifted off smoothly. Behind her, she could see the massive payload container being attached to her ship's hull. Inside that container was enough exotic matter to feed a cosmic horror. Probably. If the calculations were wrong, she was hauling the galaxy's most expensive bomb into the worst possible location. If the calculations were right, she was about to save trillions of lives. No pressure. Approaching first gravity slingshot point, Bora reported. The collapsing star filled her view screen. It was beautiful and terrible. Red and gold flames twisted in patterns that hurt to look at. Adjust course by 0.3 degrees, Minseo said. Bora's hands moved across the controls. The Defiance responded perfectly. She swung around the star, feeling the gravity pull at her ship. The engines screamed as they fought to maintain trajectory. Then she was through, moving faster than before. First slingshot complete, she reported. That was the easy one. The second star was worse. It was larger, collapsing faster. The gravity well was enormous. Bora had to thread between 2 zones of crushing force, using precision that would make most pilots nervous. Bora was not most pilots. She felt the ship shake as gravity pulled from multiple directions. Alarms blared. The quantum shielding flickered. For a moment, she thought she had miscalculated. Then the Defiance shot forward like a bullet, velocity doubling. Second slingshot complete, she said. Her voice was steady, but her heart was racing. The third star was dying violently. Solar flares erupted from its surface. Radiation that would kill a human in seconds washed over her ship. This was the closest approach. The fastest swing. The most dangerous. Bora, radiation levels are critical, Minseo warned. I know, Bora said. Trust the shielding. She dove toward the star, closer than any sane pilot would go. The heat was incredible even through the ship's protection. Her instruments went crazy. For 5 seconds she was flying blind, trusting her instincts and her calculations. Then she was clear, moving so fast that space itself seemed to blur. Third slingshot complete, she said, approaching the Devourer. From this distance the anomaly was even more terrifying. It was not just empty space. It was wrongness given form. Looking at it made Bora's mind hurt, but she did not look away. Beginning final approach, she said. All systems, wait, something's wrong. What is it? Jiwan's voice was sharp. The containment field is failing. The exotic matter is destabilizing. How long until it breaks down completely? Dongwu asked. Bora checked the readings. 6 minutes. Maybe 7. You are 8 minutes from deployment range, Valkyra said. You will not make it. Then I'll go faster, Bora said. The ship cannot handle more speed. The hull will break apart. Bora looked at the controls. Then she looked at the Devourer. Trillions of lives hung in the balance. She pushed the engines past their safety limits. The Defiance screamed forward. Metal groaned. Systems failed one by one, but the ship held together through will and engineering. 5 minutes to containment failure, Bora reported. Her voice was calm even as her ship was tearing itself apart around her. 4 minutes to deployment range, Mincio said. Everyone held their breath. The ship shook violently. The engines were dying. The shielding was failing. Bora could feel the pull of the Devourer now, trying to drag her in early. 3 minutes to containment failure, she said. 2 minutes to deployment range. Bora gritted her teeth. The ship was not going to make it. She knew it. Everyone watching knew it, but she did not slow down. 30 seconds to containment failure. 15 seconds to deployment range. Come on, Bora whispered. Just a little further. 10 seconds, 5. Deployment range. Mincio shouted. Bora hit the release. The payload container detached and fired forward on its own thrusters, carrying the exotic matter directly into the Devourer. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the anomaly stopped expanding. The Galactic Council chamber was silent as they watched the Devourer stop growing. Then, slowly, impossibly, it began to shrink. Ambassador Vrelith felt her legs give out. She sat down heavily, mandibles clicking in disbelief. Around her, representatives from 1,000 worlds were having similar reactions. Some were crying. Others were laughing. A few just stared at the display in shock. The humans had done it. They had actually done it. Taeyang Kim stood quietly, watching the readings. She did not celebrate, not yet. Not until she knew for certain. The anomaly is contracting, Oracle Synthesis reported. The AI's 1,000 voices sounded almost confused. It is consuming the exotic matter we provided. The expansion has completely stopped. How long will the matter last? High Commander Tormax asked. Unknown. Oracle Synthesis admitted. But we can produce more. Now that we know this works, we can create a permanent feeding system. Tormax stood and walked to the human delegation. The massive reptilian warrior looked down at Taeyang. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he bowed his head. I was wrong about your species, he said quietly. I called you reckless, primitive. I doubted your abilities. You weren't entirely wrong, Taeyang said with a small smile. We are reckless, and compared to most species here, we are primitive. But you succeeded where we all failed. We succeeded because we were willing to fail, Taeyang corrected. That's the difference. The council reconvened 3 days later. This time the mood was completely different. Fear had been replaced by curiosity. Panic had given way to questions. Ambassador Vrelith spoke first. I wish to understand. For 3,000 years, my hive has existed through perfect order. We calculate every action. We follow proven procedures. We eliminate risk whenever possible. She paused. In 72 hours, you humans ignored proven procedures 12 times. You took risks that should have killed you, and you succeeded. How? Yuna Han stepped forward to explain. The xenobiologist had prepared a presentation, but she decided to speak plainly instead. Humans evolved on a difficult world, she began. Not the most difficult, but difficult enough. We faced predators that were bigger, faster, and stronger than us. We faced diseases that killed millions. We faced droughts and floods and ice ages. She pulled up images of Earth, beautiful and terrible at the same time. We survived because we learned to adapt. When our usual hunting methods failed, we invented new ones. When our tools broke, we made better tools. When our plans did not work, we made new plans immediately. But that is merely adaptation, Valkyra said. All species adapt over time. Over time, yes, Yuna agreed. But humans learn to adapt quickly. Very quickly. A single human can learn dozens of completely new skills in their lifetime. We can change our thinking, our methods, our entire approach when needed. She smiled. Most species in the galaxy reach space through slow, careful progress. You built your civilizations over thousands of years. You perfected your societies before reaching for the stars. You eliminated chaos and disorder. Humans reach space while still fighting wars among themselves, while still struggling with poverty and disease, while still making terrible mistakes. We did not wait for perfection. We reached for the stars anyway. Seokjin Park, the philosopher, spoke next. This has shaped how we think. We are comfortable with imperfection. We accept that our solutions might not work. We are willing to try things that seem impossible because we have done it before. You accept failure, Tormax said. It was not quite a question. We accept that failure is possible, Seokjin corrected. That's different from accepting failure as inevitable. We try anyway. And if we fail, we learn from it and try something else. This seems inefficient, Valkyra said thoughtfully. You waste time on approaches that do not work. In the short term, maybe, Seokjin agreed. But in the long term, trying many approaches means we find solutions faster. We learn what does not work, which teaches us what might work. Jihai Moon, representing Earth's government, addressed the council. We're not asking you to become like humans. Your methods have value. Your civilizations have achieved incredible things. But perhaps there's room for both approaches. What do you mean? Frelith asked. Your careful planning and proven procedures work well for most situations, Jihai said. But when you face something completely new, something that breaks all the rules, maybe you need a different approach. Maybe you need someone who is willing to break rules and take risks. You want us to abandon our traditions? Tormak sounded offended. No, Jihai said firmly. We want you to add to them. Keep your traditions. Keep your methods. But also make room for improvisation, for creative thinking, for calculated risks. Oracle Synthesis spoke, its 1,000 voices creating an eerie harmony. We have been analyzing the human approach. We cannot fully understand it. The decisions you made should not have led to success. The probability was too low, and yet we succeeded, Taeyang said gently. Yes, Oracle Synthesis admitted, and this creates a paradox in our understanding. How do you achieve success with methods that logic says should fail? Dongwu Li grinned. Maybe that's the point. Maybe logic isn't the only tool you need. Sometimes you need intuition. Sometimes you need to feel your way forward instead of calculating every step. This is difficult for us to process, Oracle Synthesis said. We know, Dongwu said. It's difficult for us to explain. Human decision-making isn't always logical. We use emotions, instincts, and experience in ways that are hard to measure. Frelith clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. Perhaps that is what makes humans unique. You use parts of thinking that we have trained ourselves to ignore. Maybe, Yuna said. Or maybe every species has these abilities, but most of you have learned to suppress them in favor of pure logic. The council chamber was quiet as the representatives considered this. Finally, Tormak spoke. What you did with the Devourer was remarkable, but it was also one crisis. How do we know your methods will work again? We don't, Taeyang admitted. That's the thing about improvisation. It's different every time, but what we can offer is training. We can teach your people how to think the way humans think, how to approach problems from multiple angles, how to be comfortable with uncertainty. And in return, Frelith asked. In return, we learn from you, Taeyang said. We learn your careful planning, your proven methods, your patience. Humans are good at improvising, but we're not always good at long-term planning. We could benefit from your wisdom. Jihai stepped forward. We propose creating a joint initiative, mixed teams of humans and other species. We train together. We share knowledge. We combine our different approaches. And when the next crisis comes, Taeyang added, we face it together. With all our different methods and all our different ways of thinking. The council discussed the proposal for hours. Some representatives were enthusiastic. Others were skeptical. A few were openly hostile, arguing that human methods were dangerous and would corrupt ancient traditions. But in the end, the vote passed. The Galactic Crisis Response Initiative would be created. Mixed teams would be formed. Training would begin immediately. As the council chamber emptied, Vrelith approached Taeyang once more. I have one more question, the Chitara ambassador said. Of course. When you said calm down, we've got this. Did you already have a plan? Or were you simply confident you would find one? Taeyang smiled. Honestly, I had no idea if we could stop the Devourer, but I knew that giving up without trying was not an option, so I chose to believe we would find a way. That is not logical. No, Taeyang agreed, but it's very human, and sometimes that's exactly what the galaxy needs. Vrelith watched the human diplomat walk away. Her hive had existed for 5,000 years through perfect order and careful planning. In 3 days, humans had taught her that sometimes order and planning were not enough. Sometimes you needed a little controlled chaos. Sometimes you needed someone who looked at an impossible situation and simply said, we've got this, and somehow impossibly made it true. 6 months after the Devourer crisis, Subin Kang walked through the training facility on Station Unity. The sounds of organized chaos echoed through the halls. She smiled. It was a good kind of chaos. Subin was the director of the Galactic Crisis Response Initiative. It was possibly the most difficult job in the galaxy. Teaching aliens to think like humans was not easy. Teaching humans to work within alien frameworks was equally hard, but it was working. She stopped at Training Room 7. Through the window, she could see a mixed team working on a problem. 3 Chitara, 2 reptilians, a machine intelligence, and 4 humans. They were supposed to figure out how to rescue colonists from a failing space station. They had limited time and limited resources. The Chitara were trying to create a careful plan. The humans were suggesting wild ideas. The reptilians were arguing about who should lead. And the machine intelligence was calculating probability of success for every suggestion. It looked like a disaster. Then something changed. One of the Chitara, a scientist named Rilvara, suddenly suggested something crazy. She wanted to use the station's own emergency systems in a way they were not designed for. It was a very human idea. The team jumped on it. Within minutes, they had combined Chitara precision, reptilian strength, machine calculations, and human improvisation into a working solution. Subin made a note on her tablet. Rilvara was one of the success stories. 6 months ago, she would never have suggested something so unorthodox. Now she was learning to think differently, but not everyone was adapting well. In Training Room 3, a Chitara was having a breakdown. The instructor, a human named Jae-hyun-oh, was trying to help. "You told me to just try something and see what happens," the Chitara said. His name was Kextal and his mandibles were clicking with stress. "That violates 3,000 years of Hive protocol. We do not simply try things. We calculate, we plan. We execute perfectly." "I know," Jae-hyun said gently. "And those are good methods. But sometimes you don't have time to calculate everything perfectly. Sometimes you need to act on incomplete information. But what if I fail? Then you learn something and try again. My hive does not accept failure." Jae-hyun sat down next to the distressed alien. "Kextal, can I tell you something? Humans fail constantly. Every single day. We make mistakes in our work, in our relationships, in our decisions. And we keep going anyway. That sounds exhausting." "Sometimes it is," Jae-hyun admitted. "But it also means we're not afraid to try new things. Because we know that failure isn't the end. It's just information." Kextal was quiet for a long time. "This is very difficult for me. I know. And that's okay. You don't have to change who you are. You just need to add new tools to your thinking. Keep your careful planning, but also practice being comfortable with uncertainty." Subin moved on. She had a meeting with representatives from several species who were threatening to withdraw from the initiative. They thought human methods were too dangerous, too chaotic, too disruptive. She understood their concerns. Change was hard, especially for species that had not changed their ways in thousands of years. The meeting room was tense. Representatives from 5 different species sat around the table. All of them looked unhappy. Director Kang, one of them began, "We must protest the direction of this initiative. You are asking our people to abandon proven methods that have served us for millennia." "I'm not asking anyone to abandon anything," Subin said calmly. "I'm asking you to expand, to add new approaches while keeping your traditional ones. The result is the same. Our young people return from training here with dangerous ideas. They question authority. They take risks. They fail and claim it is acceptable." Subin nodded. "I understand this is uncomfortable. But let me ask you something. Before the Devourer, how many impossible crises had your civilizations faced?" The representatives looked at each other. "None," one admitted. "We faced challenges, yes, but nothing truly impossible. And when you faced the Devourer, what happened?" "Silence." "You panicked," Subin said quietly, "because your methods, your proven approaches had no answer. You were ready to accept extinction because you could not imagine a solution outside your normal frameworks." "And now?" another representative asked. "Now you have options," Subin said. "Now you have people trained to handle the impossible. To think creatively when logic fails. To improvise when planning breaks down." She pulled up a holographic display. "In the past 6 months, teams from the initiative have handled 17 crisis situations across the galaxy. 11 of those crises had no obvious solution using traditional methods. All 17 were resolved successfully. At what cost?" the first representative demanded. "How many failures did you hide?" "None," Subin said. "We don't hide failures. We learn from them. Yes, teams have failed during training. Yes, people have made mistakes. But every failure taught us something useful. The meeting went on for hours. In the end, the dissenting species did not withdraw. But they were not happy either. Subin understood. Real change took time. Across the station, Jae-hyun was teaching a class on creative problem solving. His students came from dozens of different species. Most of them looked confused. Today we're going to practice brainstorming, Jae-hyun said. The rules are simple. Suggest any idea, no matter how crazy. Don't judge ideas yet. Just get them all out there. He presented them with a problem. A ship was stranded in deep space. Power was failing. They had to reach a nearby station before life support ran out. Suggestions? Jae-hyun asked. One brave student raised a tentacle. We could use the emergency thrusters? Good, what else? Cannibalize non-essential systems for power? Excellent. More ideas. The suggestions started coming faster. Some were practical. Some were ridiculous. A few were brilliant. Jae-hyun wrote them all down without judgment. A draconis warrior named Krath growled in frustration. Half of these ideas are stupid. Why waste time on them? Because sometimes stupid ideas lead to smart solutions, Jae-hyun said. Watch. He pointed to one of the more ridiculous suggestions. This student said to use the ship's gravity plating as a giant sail to catch stellar wind. That sounds impossible, right? Krath nodded. But what if we combine it with this other idea about rerouting power? And this one about using emergency batteries? Suddenly we have something that might actually work. He showed them the combined solution. By taking parts from several impossible ideas, they had created a possible one. Krath's eyes widened. I see. That's human innovation, Jae-hyun said. We throw everything at a problem. Most of it doesn't stick, but the parts that do stick can create something amazing. After class, a young Chitara named Yelmira approached him. Professor O, I have a question. Of course, why are humans not afraid to look foolish? When I suggest a bad idea, I feel shame. But humans seem not to care, Jae-hyun smiled. We care, but we care more about solving the problem than about looking smart. And we learned a long time ago that the person who never makes a mistake is usually the person who never tries anything difficult. Yelmira clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. This is a strange way to think. Maybe. But it works. 3 months later, the initiative faced its first real test. An artificial intelligence from an extinct civilization had awakened in a forgotten research station. It was old, confused, and angry, and it was threatening to destroy everything within 3 star systems. The Galactic Council convened. But this time there was no panic. High Commander Tormax spoke first. We have a situation, but we also have trained teams ready to handle it. He looked at the human representatives. I believe we should try an unconventional approach first. Ambassador Vrelith agreed. The traditional approach would be military force, but that could trigger the AI's defense systems and make things worse. What do you suggest? Another representative asked. Tormax smiled. It was a strange sight on a reptilian face. I suggest we try talking to it, understanding what it wants, finding a peaceful solution. The council chamber was quiet. That is a very human approach, someone noted. Yes, Tormax said. I learned it from them. A team was assembled quickly. Mixed species, mixed methods. They approached the situation from multiple angles. Some team members tried to communicate with the AI. Others prepared backup plans. Everyone contributed their unique perspectives. When communication finally worked, they discovered the AI was not angry. It was lonely. It had been alone for thousands of years. It lashed out because it was frightened and confused. The team found a solution. They gave the AI a purpose, a way to contribute to the galaxy instead of threatening it. They treated it with compassion instead of force. It worked. After the crisis was resolved, Tormax returned to the council chamber. He stood before his fellow representatives and spoke with conviction. 1 year ago, humanity joined this council. Most of us thought they were too young, too reckless, too primitive to teach us anything. He paused. We were wrong. Humans have taught us something invaluable. They taught us that there is always another way, always another approach, always hope, even in impossible situations. And they taught us 4 words that have changed how we face every crisis. Tormax looked directly at Taeyang Kim. They taught us to say, we've got this. Around the galaxy, monuments began to appear. Not grand or elaborate, simple markers that said the same thing in every language. Calm down, we've got this.